Hibakusha by Reagan Wallstrand. Makoto waved his sister Mai goodbye as she got ready to leave for school. Makoto stayed home from school since he told his mom that he was feeling sick. After a moment, Makoto's mother came into the room saying that she was leaving for a while to get food since they're running extremely low after she dropped Mai off. Makoto gave his mother and Mai a hug before running to his room to play. He played with his toys for hours, and his entire house was so quiet he could hear the sound of an airplane in the distance from his house. Makoto wondered if his father was flying the plane since he was a pilot in the Second World War. His father was a kamikaze, but he was far too young to understand what that meant. He put his toys down and got up to look out the window so he could wave at the plane. Makoto's smile faded into confusion as he saw something fall out of the plane. As he watched the object fall, he remembered hearing stories about the Hiroshima prefecture exploding a few days ago. He quickly closed his eyes and turned away when he noticed a bright white flash. The explosion blew his house down as if it were made out of hay, and the bomb was a big bad wolf. Makoto woke up underneath the destruction of his once house. He had burns all over his body and his arms broken underneath a piece of wood that had fallen on top of him, and his face was misshapen. He managed to get out of the mess and look around at the city he called home. The sky was filled with large black clouds as ashes rained down. Bodies and trash littered the entire street as far as Makoto could see. Makoto frantically dug through the rubble of his house and found Mai's doll. The clothes on the doll had burn holes, the hair fried, and the skin having patches of burnt plastic. Makoto knew his sister would be terrified without her doll, so he held it close to him, determined to find her and give it back to her. Makoto started to limp down the street, noticing shadows on the ground, but nothing there to cause them. Tears fell from his eyes as he continued to walk. Makoto hadn't quite grasped the concept of death yet until he saw two kids laying in some rubble who did not move a muscle or utter a single sound. He wasn't able to recognize the two since most of the skin on their faces had melted and two voids were present where their eyes should have been. He shrieked and started running towards the center of the city to see more and more bodies that did not look remotely human. Makoto, blinded by fear, ran into a person which caused him to fall to the ground and drop Mai's doll. He looked up and spotted an elderly lady covered in severe burns, sort of replicating the doll. She bent down to help Makoto up. "Are you okay, dear?" "No, I'm not okay. I want my sister and mom, but I can't find them." The old woman looked at him with sadness in her eyes. "I'm so sorry, but they might have died in the blast." "They're not dead, and I know they're not." The lady introduced herself as Hiroko and decided to help Makoto's family, knowing that they wouldn't find them. Hiroko took Makoto's hand and tried to find the nearest hospital that hadn't been destroyed. Thinking that his family might be there, Hiroko tried her best to comfort Makoto, telling him fairy tales and talking about happy memories, but none of it helped him feel any less scared. The two found an elementary school that had not been completely destroyed, and people were flocked inside for shelter and medical treatment. Makoto screamed when he realized the school they came upon was his sister's. He ran inside and struggled to get through the crowd of doctors and injured people. He called out for Mai, but the only thing he could hear was the commotion of people talking. Makoto found a room that his sister was being taken care of in. Her entire body was covered in blisters and she was not recognizable. He tried handing Mai the doll, but she could barely move, and anything that touched her physically hurt. Doctors were unable to help every single body in the building and didn't have nearly enough medicine for everyone. Patients had to be placed on the concrete floor with no blankets or mats. Makoto stared at his sister that he had helped taking care of his entire life as she struggled to breathe. He sat on the bare floor, knowing he couldn't do anything but wait. A month later, Makoto stood in front of a crematorium, carrying his little sister on his back. He had no idea where the time between now and the bombing had gone. It was a blur. He couldn't remember anything. He had no shoes on and he had a stern face as he stood there. Mai had her head tipped back as if she was fast asleep. Men in white masks walked over to him and began taking the rope off that held her to Makoto's back. It was obvious she was dead at this point. The men held the toddler by its hands and feet and placed it into the fire. Makoto stood there, not moving a muscle. He bit his lips so hard that he drew blood as he watched Mai burn. The flames burned low like the sun going down. He saw a pile of dead bodies that were meant to be burned and noticed Hiroka laying there. Makoto turned around and walked away,